everyone. I hope this finds you very well and you have got a good holiday coming up over the next few weeks. I wanted to send this talk partly for a happy Christmas message and partly to say thank you. Thank you for signing up to the Baroque course. I'm really grateful. And as you all know, I'm thrilled to be getting these online talks back up and running again. Many of you have already booked into the next course. This is going to be looking at art from the 18th and 19th century. It's a 12-part series, and I'm going to give you longer this time. I've already extended the Baroque series through until the beginning of January. So if you haven't finished all of the sessions, please don't worry. You've got time over the Christmas period to watch everything. For this next season, I'm going to give an extra month as well so that you've all got plenty of time to watch it. If you would like to book, use the code REVOLUTION. Revolution will give you 30% off the full series. This code will be active through until the 24th of December. And if you would like to purchase the series as a Christmas present, then you can toggle on gift this and you can set up the recipient's details or just email me. You can do a bank transfer in GBP if you prefer, and I can then send you a voucher, whatever suits you best. But for now, what I wanted to do is talk to you about a concept that I've been studying over the past few months, and that is the dove and the role of the dove in art, because it has a fascinating story to tell. I want to think about the way in which artists from a very long time ago through to today have visualized the dove, particularly in its relationship to peace, and how they can use the dove to promote peace through their art in our world that is not, of course, always at peace. And the reason why I wanted to explore this right now is that peace, of course, is always at the heart of Christmas. You know, when you think about it historically, artistically, culturally, this very particular special season always carries this wonderful shared sense of expectation that we are going to pause, that we are going to reflect and be grateful, and we have time to communicate and love one another, and we have time to work on and hope for, strive for a world that is more harmonious than the one that we live in. And I want to explore these ideas through this one particular symbol, the dove. And what we'll find in this talk is a journey with the dove where we fly across the world. We are going to start in Renaissance Italy, but we'll end up in Iceland. We will look at art from Saudi Arabia to the Côte d'Azur. We are going to visit international peace organizations and political protests in Palestine. We will consider the role of the dove in the Torah and then subsequently the Old and New Testaments, and also its part to play in the universal aspect of our eternal desire for peace. The story of the dove carries great weight. It is a small symbol, but it has an unusually long history. But before I get into that history, I just want to start in Rome. We have been visiting Rome in the Baroque course, of course, with Gian Lorenzo Bernini, but I didn't really dwell on St. Peter's, and I want to use this as an opportunity to talk about it briefly now, to introduce the idea of the dove. St. Peter's has been visited a lot this year because it is a holy year. And I know that many of you who are listening to this have been to this extraordinary basilica recently in order to walk through the holy doors. And I'm sure it was an incredible experience for you. Now, for those of you who've recently been or been in the past, you will remember that it is an absolutely colossal building. And when you arrive, you are always stunned, overwhelmed by the size of this enormous place. Even today in 2025, the effect is absolutely monumental. I mean, transcendental, of course, for many people who go there with religious feelings and sensibilities. But what would have it been like for the pilgrims of the 17th century to walk into this space and see this awe-inspiring architecture all around them? Michelangelo's great dome, all of the added additions by Gian Lorenzo Bernini. I think it probably would have been like entering heaven itself. In the Basilica, there is so much to see. There is so much to explore, but your eye is always caught by that golden light right at the east end of the church that irresistibly draws your eye down towards it. As you go down to the transepts, you see the light getting stronger. Now, here we can see Bernini's absolutely extraordinary baldacchino that he did for the Barberini Pope Urban VIII. The baldacchino is made in bronze. It is the size of an 8-story building. It is 90 tons in weight. It's absolutely enormous, but it acts as this rather good mediator between the little pilgrims who are walking below and the colossal size of this architecture. But it also acts as a perfect frame for the light behind. This is a piece of pure Bernini style theatre. At the eastern point of St. Peter's, we see his chair. We see the great cathedra itself, which is this structure here encased in bronze and held up by the 4 doctors of the church. But when you're looking at the cathedra, it's difficult to focus on the chair, on the doctors of the church, because of that light behind. This extraordinary Baroque bolt of radiance, blasting sunbeams, shuddering clouds, angels flying everywhere, martyrs sweeping in with their palms. All this drama, all this gold, because of what is happening in the middle. Something so bright, so godly, so great, that sometimes it's hard to look at. And it's a dove, a small white bird, which projects this reverberating spiritual power throughout the whole space. It is a timeless symbol, one that Gian Lorenzo Bernini has, in his way in which he does, the great artist of the performance, has brought into focus 2,000 years worth of history and power and meaning, using this bit of stained glass, using the cathedra to show the moment that peace takes form. And when in the Christian world, it's understood that the divine presence descends, not as fire, not as thunder, but as a dove in flight. Now, as I said earlier, the symbol is ancient, long before the Holy Spirit in Christianity. The dove fluttered through the temples of ancient Mesopotamia. The dove was to be found in the shrines of Inanna and Astarte, the oldest goddesses of love. When you enter into the Greek world, you find the dove again as the companion to Aphrodite, the goddess of love. It becomes her symbol of beauty, sexuality, and love. So too did the Roman Venus repurpose the dove. And the dove now is not just beauty and love, but also tenderness and renewal. And with the Renaissance's interest in everything that was antique, the dove flutters into many paintings that are associated with the goddess of love, Venus. This is a wonderful Piero di Cosimo painting in the Gemälde Gallery in Berlin, which has been very much inspired by Botticelli's Mars and Venus, that some of you will know, in the National Gallery in London. Here we can see the dove as Venus's support, along with all of the other attributes that is connected to Venus. We have got the god of war here, Mars, who is sort of sleeping it off, if you like, and Venus over here on the other side, who is, I think, perhaps looking a little bit bored with her circumstances, again, playing on what Botticelli has done in his great painting. But with all of her attributes around her, we can see Cupid by her side. We have got the bunnies as well for procreation, of course. And we have also got the two beautiful courting doves down in the front of the painting. A little dark dove for Mars with a little splash of white on it, and the white dove for Venus with a little splash of black on it. These doves here that are almost kissing in this really lovely, tender way are representing what the goddess stands for: love, fertility, and sexuality. But the dove was not at all confined to mythological stories about Venus and Aphrodite. We see the dove fly into our global religions. Firstly, with Judaism, the dove becomes the great symbol of hope. And in the first book of the Torah, we find the story of Noah, of course, and this is then taken into the Old Testament. This extraordinary story of when rain floods the earth and Noah builds his epic ark. This is the point when the flood is finally abating, and Noah sends out the dove to see whether it can find any land. This mosaic, by the way, is in St. Mark's Basilica in Venice, and it looks so wonderfully Venetian to me. Partly because Noah's Ark has got a bit of stained glass in it. I mean, can you imagine how delighted Noah would have been to have had this in his Ark? A beautiful, beautiful piece of Venetian glass there. But also that water. That water is some of the most glorious water I know in mosaics. These wonderful, sinuous, silken, serpentine forms that are whittling their way down through the scene, at once silver, then gold, and then blue. And you can imagine what it would have looked like in the candlelight of St. Mark's when it was lit by candles only. It would have been absolutely mesmerizing. You would have really got the sense of what water would have looked like as it kind of moves and swirls around. And then all of those colors in the waves are picked up by Noah's robe that he is wearing, and you can see him there just getting ready to launch that dove out to flight. Now, this is the next moment in the story. This is now from a church down in Sicily, Monreale, which is just outside of Palermo. This is from the 12th century, and this is the moment the dove returns. The dove has returned with an olive branch to tell Noah that it's going to be all right, that land has been found. And it is just in the nick of time, because when you look around the ark, you can see that there are dead bodies floating in the water. And even though it's a little bit gruesome, I should draw your attention to this because it really is quite amazing the way in which these 12th century mosaicists have illustrated what skin and body looks like when it is seen through the waves. You can see his arms just floating off down here. And there's another guy on the other side who's being pecked at by ravens over here. You see Noah's family in the ark looking very much ready to get to dry land, again, squashed and a little bit stressed. And then Noah over here wonderfully receiving the dove back in. And this dove here is, of course, a symbol of hope, because it reminds us of this kind of reconciliation between God and his creation. It's there to mark an end to this period of chaos and the beginning of a renewed era of hope and joy and positivity. But the flight of the dove is not over, because it wings its way very much into the New Testament and descends as the Holy Spirit. We see the dove time and again in Renaissance paintings, most often in the Annunciation. And I want to focus on Carlo Crivelli's Annunciation, which is in the National Gallery in London, now to explore this. It is such an extraordinary painting, and I don't think I have had the opportunity yet to talk to you about it online. I love receiving this as a Christmas card. It is just such a bonkers piece of art. I think one of the reasons why I love it so much is because Gabriel reminds me so much of David Bowie in his 1970s Ziggy Stardust heyday. I mean, look at those shoulder pads. Aren't they incredible? I think you can definitely forgive me for getting these two mixed up because Carlo Crivelli, throughout this whole painting, seems to have been channeling 1970s rock vibes. The outfits in here are absolutely astonishing. And I feel like his imagination in so many of his paintings, but perhaps this one most of all, was on overdrive because it is just unlike any other Annunciation that you have seen up until this point. Some of you might know these gloriously tender, simple, quiet Annunciations. This is Fra Angelico's, which is in San Marco in Florence. Gosh, it's so beautiful. You have the Virgin Mary here bending quietly down towards Gabriel. And the dove itself is hovering in this lovely orb above Mary's head. We've also got this one, the Filippo Lippi Annunciation, which is in the National Gallery in London. Such a sweet painting, emphasizing Mary's youth here, with the dove hovering just in front of her here. And when you look very carefully, you can see that the dove is injecting its light through this rather useful hole in her dress in order to receive the Holy Spirit. But this is very different. This is a very different cup of tea altogether. You need time to look at this painting, time to absorb the detail because there is so much in it. And one of the things that you notice, first of all, is that Carlo Crivelli was extremely keen to tell us that he knew all about perspective. Now, you will have heard me talk about perspective before, and this great sort of revolutionary moment that came with Filippo Brunelleschi in the 1430s when he understood how to successfully reproduce a three-dimensional space on a two-dimensional plane, i.e. a painting. And Carlo Crivelli knows all about it, as he's so keen to show us here. We can see this scene that goes way back into depth through that arch that we have in the midground, and then to this kind of wall with the garden behind. And just look at that wall. This is one of my favorite details in the whole of the painting. Look at the crenellations on the top, and look at the fact that some of it has just been repaired. You can even see the mortar dribbling down the side of the wall. It's just such an amazing detail. Let me show you a few more details because it's well worth looking at. Look at this woman here. A slither of a lady walking through the scene with a kettle or something on her head. Look at the architecture. I mean, he always just makes the architecture so over the top and fabulous. You can see it's packed full of classical inspiration here. We've got roundels with kind of Roman emperors in them. We've got this cornice with dolphins kind of swirling around the place. We've got different coloured marbles all over the painting. But then we've got these other details that show different kind of architecture. Look at this. Look at all of the chip bits of wall in the stonework over here. It's just such a lovely, realistic touch. And actually, come on, while we're here, let's have a look at this hairstyle. I have to say, this painting is filled with the most amazing hairstyles. I love this one. It's like a kind of upside down pudding bowl that we've got going on here. We've got the peacock over on the other side of the painting. Beautifully painted with these very, very rich colours. Look at the shadow. Can you see the shadow of the peacock on the wall just next door to it here? It's just absolutely gorgeous. And then, you know, throw in a cucumber and apple. This is actually connected to Carlo Crivelli's signature, these two fruits, which you see time and time again in his painting. You can also see a signature up here made by Carlo Crivelli. And down here, even though I haven't got the full thing in the slide, it says Libertas Ecclesiastica. Now, what does that mean? That means what we see in this scene here. So here's another couple of fabulous hairstyles. We have a little messenger boy down here, this kind of hedgehog looking like chap over here, who is handing a notary a piece of paper that says on it the details of the Libertas Ecclesiastica, which basically means this town, the town for which this painting was created for, which is a town called Ascoli Piceno, which is in the north of Italy, in the Marche. It has been given the right to self-government. And so this becomes this painting not just of the Annunciation, but of celebration that it is able to now govern itself. And when you look at this scene, because it's a really important part of the painting, you can see that it's been marked by a fluttering carpet, which reminds us of the celebration, which reminds us that this is a part of the painting that we're going to look at. But when you pan out a little bit further, you can see that there is a bigger carpet over here, because really the main part of the story is with this carpet directly underneath it. And that is, of course, the moment when our extremely funky Angel Gabriel over here, alongside the bishop of the town, Ascoli Piceno, who's holding up a model of the town, meets the Virgin Mary and tells her that she will bear the Son of God. Now, I want to think about the dove, of course. That is why we are here. And in order to get a sense of the impact of the dove, we need to have a look at this guy, first of all, this wonderful man in gold who is in the middle ground, who really cannot comprehend what is going on. He is looking up at the sky, his arm is shielding his eyes, and he is shielding his eyes from this dazzling light that is coming down from the sky. And when you look a little bit closer, you can see we've got this wonderful kind of whirlwind, this golden vortex of spiritual energy that is opening up the sky and shooting these golden beams down to the house below. And again, we've got another very providential little hole in the architecture so that the light can seamlessly shoot through that arch. Look at the detail around the arch. It's kind of splattering the whole thing with gold, like some kind of 15th century spray paint going on here. And then it goes into this wonderfully furnished space in which Mary sits at prayer. There's lots of symbolic things in this space here. There's candles, there's vases for kind of representing the Virgin's purity, and there's all sorts of other things that you would have in a highly elaborate furnished household. And there she is at her table reading her Bible. It's always funny looking at Annunciations because Mary, who's clearly often just been having a nice quiet time on her own, reading her books or her Bible, has suddenly been disturbed by this massive, great big kind of happening in the sky around her. Angels fluttering down. I mean, what an extraordinary story it is. But true to Carlo Corelli's form, he has dressed her for the part, looking absolutely extraordinary in this amazing outfit, one that David Bowie definitely would have been extremely pleased about. You see her in this wonderful green robe, wonderful lining of silk just rippling down through it. And then look at that dress. Oh my gosh, I am desperate to have a dress like this. Just amazing. This crimson dress with beautiful gold floral embroidery all round it. And then these amazing, elegant, long fingers that are kind of bowed in prayer. It's just amazing. And it is into this space that the dove and the light makes its journey. Here we see that earthly incarnation of the Holy Spirit, this wonderful kind of resplendent dove, which is shining in a gold mandala directly above Mary's head. This is the moment that the invisible is made visible and the impossible is made possible. And those final beams of light get projected directly onto a jewel on Mary's forehead, representing the moment of incarnation, the moment when Mary becomes pregnant with Christ. It's a wonderfully dramatic arrow of divine agency. And we see this dove fluttering through the whole of the Gospels. We see it not just in the Annunciation, but also in the baptism again. Any opportunity I have to show Piero della Francesca's baptism, I'm going to grab it. I'll only quickly look at it, though. It's just such a gorgeous painting. Again, in the National Gallery. I'm using quite a lot of paintings from the National Gallery today. This is the moment when Christ is, of course, grown up and he's being baptized by his cousin, John the Baptist, in the River Jordan, who has got this bowl with the water inside it. And just look at that drop. Look at that little beautiful iridescent drop that is about to fall onto Christ's head. There is such extraordinary stillness in this scene. It's all very highly worked out from a mathematical geometric perspective. For those of you who heard me talk about it, you would have seen that I kind of untangle and unpick the whole thing in a mathematical way, and that's why there is this great sense of harmony in this painting. But such an important element of it is this dove that floats above Christ's head here in this wonderful constant way. There's such a strength of presence in this dove, quite rightly so, because this is the moment that in the Gospels we are told that God's word is made manifest, as he says that Christ is indeed his son. We then see the Baroque fly into the Pentecost scenes, not always, but certainly here in Rubens's Pentecost. When after Christ has died and been resurrected again, the apostles, they receive different tongues of language in order to go out and preach. They're represented here as these tongues of fire, these flames that are coming down, sent to the apostles by this wonderful Baroque dove that bursts from the heavenly clouds. And if you can remember what I was talking about at the beginning with Gian Lorenzo Bernini, you will see that the drama of Rubens's Pentecost is very much in the same trajectory as the drama of Bernini's resplendent dove at the eastern point of St. Peter's Basilica. This dove that just radiates across the whole of this extraordinary space. So it is an ancient symbol. It is a symbol that has been repurposed in the Christian world to remind us that in our chaotic and busy and turbulent lives, this gift from God is given to us, a gift that represents peace and love. But what I want to do now is move into the second part of the talk and leave the Christian dove in order to think about the modern dove and the dove of universal peace and how it has been used for political purposes. And for that, I want to start off with Picasso, because Picasso was the artist who really gave the dove its modern voice. In 1949, by which point Picasso was a globally famous celebrity artist, he created this beautiful lithograph of a dove for the first World Peace Congress, which was held in Paris in 1949. And as you can imagine, from the date, Europe was still very much reeling from the devastation of the two world wars, and everyone needed to think about peace, to reflect on peace, to insist on peace. And the organizers of the peace conference asked Picasso to create a suitable image in order to sum up what the conference was all about. And Picasso, of course, turned to the great and ancient symbol of the dove, although I have to say, is it going to slightly ruin it if I tell you that this is actually based on a pigeon? Picasso had a pigeon that was given to him by his great friend Henri Matisse, who I'm going to talk about a bit later on. So it's actually not a dove, but never mind. Let's pretend it is a dove for tonight. It's supposed to represent a dove. That is for sure. La colombe means the dove. And regardless, it is a glorious work of art. It is at once extremely economic. Look at the way in which he's created the feet and the hay, just a few strokes that we have going on down in that lower half of the work. But then at the same time, when you look at the face of the dove, it's laden with such kind of tenderness. It's so emotive. And I think that's the way in which we have the tilt of the eye and the shadow on the face. And that slight hint, I don't know whether you can see, but there's just a glimmer of light in the center of that eye. The whiteness of the body of the dove obviously stands out against the darkness behind it. You do feel like that dove is being swamped by the darkness, reminding us of the fragility of peace, which I think is a really important part of this. Now, when you think about Picasso and doves, you probably do not think about this, even though that this work became unbelievably famous in the 1950s. We think about a different kind of dove, and that is because Picasso was asked on multiple occasions to create more doves for more conferences and gatherings that had the concept of peace at the heart of them. And perhaps the most famous one that he created was this one, the Blue Dove, La Colombe Bleue, which was created in 1961 for the World Congress for General Disarmament and Peace. This was held in Moscow this time. And you can see how in 12 years, the way in which Picasso has represented the dove has moved dramatically from this almost naturalistic approach to the line drawing, a line drawing stripped of all detail in order to convey something so weighty. And this dove holds the olive branch. It's reminding us of that hope that Noah so desperately needed. This moment when chaos was dismissed and order returned, which is, of course, a key ingredient for peace. And this dove, this amazing stamp of intention that was created in just 6 lines, became such an important political icon. And it's Picasso's dove that Banksy took. Banksy took to Bethlehem in 2005 and placed it on the Palestinian side of the separation wall. This is just next door to the Palestinian Heritage Center. And it is another dove of peace, as you can see. The dove is holding an olive branch, but this dove has a red target on its chest. This dove's flight is being tracked. And we see that it is in a perilous position. It is a dove that knows its innocence has been lost because the dove has prepared itself. The dove wears a bulletproof jacket. And it's no accident that Banksy has chosen a wall that's got bullet marks across it, as you can see above. It is a deliberate subversion. Banksy has combined the dove's traditional meaning with these images of conflict and danger and the sense of fragility. And as is so often the way with his street art, he cuts to the quick. He cuts to the quick every time with such direct simplicity. And he's reminding us that peace is fragile, that peace is under threat. And of course, we are also reminded of where we are. There is the sign saying, "Welcome to Palestine, welcome to Bethlehem." And in the Christian context, this Bethlehem is where peace itself was born, where Christ was born in the manger. But now in today's world, peace is not safe. And hope is compromised. Hope and the dove has to fly with great caution here. So it's a bleak image, but it is a powerful image. And it shows you how the dove can be repurposed for political reasons. And I would say the same thing has been done here. This artist, Manal Addoayan, has created the most extraordinary series of doves and used them for political purposes in a piece that she created in 2011 called Suspended Together. Now, when you first look at this artwork, you're absolutely stunned by the beauty of it. So many doves, doves that are pecking on the ground down below, doves that are in the air, great throngs of them. And you can imagine the noise and the feel of their wings beating against the air. But when you remember the name and when you get closer, you realize that actually we have a different story here. They are made out of hard, stiff, cold porcelain, and the artwork is called Suspended Together. And that is what is happening. Each dove is hanging on a string and it is immovable. As you get closer still, you start seeing they carry messages. They carry on their bodies a permission document. Now, Manal Adwan is from Saudi Arabia. And when this was created in 2011, she wanted to draw into focus the fact that Saudi women needed these permission documents in order to be able to travel. They would get the documents from their appointed male guardian, who might be their husband or their father, or maybe even their son. And she wrote to a large group of leading award winning women, women who were scientists and educators and journalists and engineers and artists. She spoke to women who were from the age of 60 right down to little girls who were 6 months old. And as the artist herself said, regardless of age and achievement, when it comes to travel, all these women are treated like a flock of suspended doves. Now, this was 2011. The ban was lifted in 2019, and the work itself was exhibited in Saudi in 2023. It's been exhibited in the Gulf from 2013. It's a powerful message. It's a poetic and political message. And we see the symbol of spirit and peace and grace become a call for action, just like Banksy's, just like Picasso's. We're reminded that we have to work hard for equality. We have to work hard for peace. But now, let's not work hard anymore. Let's just indulge. Let's just indulge in the dove released. As we enter into the final section of this talk, I want to talk about two artists. Firstly, Henri Matisse, who is an artist I love very much. And second of all, Yoko Ono. Let's start with Matisse first. So Matisse was born in 1869 in northern France, and he started off as a lawyer. It was not until a little bit later on that he turned to art, but immediately he started breaking free and creating seminal reactionary works such as this, the epic painting in the Musée d'Orsay from 1904, and this one, 1905, Bonheur de Vivre, which I'm sure many of you will know both of these works. It's almost hard to stress how radical these paintings were, and I will definitely find time to talk about them in detail at some point. He was stunning his viewers with his non-naturalistic colours. He was scandalizing viewers with his colours. This work, a painting of Madame Matisse, was exhibited at the Paris Salon d'Automne in 1905. And so the story goes, one woman fainted at horror at the pallor of Madame Matisse's green skin. And one critic said famously that he felt that he was surrounded by wild beasts when looking at these paintings. And it was this throwaway line that gave Matisse and his fellow artists their name, the Fauves, the wild beasts. Now, Matisse was not being subversive for the sake of it. He was liberating his paintings. He was liberating color. He was liberating form and finding a way to create more freedom in art than ever before. And by the time we reached 1910, Matisse was established as really one of the giants of European modernism. He was friends with Picasso. He gave Picasso that pigeon. And he, throughout his life, continued to experiment in really very radical ways. But what I want to do is fast forward to the end of his life, because when he was 72, things changed. He had to adapt. In 1941, he had an operation for stomach cancer that pretty much nearly killed him. And he ended up chair-bound and in constant pain. Now, on top of that, Matisse and his friends had lived through the horrors of two world wars, and trauma would have been close to their minds. And, when you think about artists who react to the wars, very often they turn to darkness. But what Matisse does is different. Matisse turns to joy, great joy. And the more bedbound Matisse became, the more he was fascinated in the dove that was free, the dove that could fly. And these photographs are taken of Matisse by his friend, the artist Henri Cartier-Bresson, who depicted Matisse comfortably with his doves. Um, Matisse is examining the doves so that he can take inspiration from them. But he wasn't just taking inspiration from the doves, he was taking inspiration from his own disability because by the time he was reaching his late 70s, early 80s, he was unable to hold a pencil or paint with a brush. So, what he does is something so remarkable. You can see in this picture, he's got a great big pair of scissors. He's returning to one of the ultimate childish acts of cutting paper with a pair of scissors, something so wonderfully instinctive and creative about this. And he would take colored bits of paper that had been prepared for him by his assistants and cut the paper into shapes. And here we have his wonderful dove that is piercing the sky, bolting up into the heavens, this wonderful streak of movement and energy. And this work is very much on the edge of abstraction, as you can see. There's no attempt at realism here. You know, these works are designed to create an immediate sensory uplift. Color and form can produce a direct emotional response. It's not supposed to be a literal depiction of the world. And the emotional response that I always feel, and I think most people feel when looking at these works, is just joy, exuberance, energy, joy. And you know, it's not just in the physical nature of these artworks. It's literally in the fact that he's simply changing the definition of what art can be. He's transforming scissors and paper into a high art form. And this is an art form that went on to influence generations of artists to come. And I think these cutouts, inclusive of these birds, are some of the most powerful symbols of resilience. You know, they're symbols of a man who was in his 80s and pretty close to his end, a man who was crippled with pain and illness, yet he still continued to change the course of art. Like the doves, he continued to soar ever upwards with joy and positivity and a focus on peace. These doves are freer than ever. And it is with that freedom that I want to move on to my final work of art. This is, as I'm sure you all know, Yoko Ono, along with her husband, John Lennon. And their peace mission began in the 1960s. The two of them got married in 1969, and they wrote the song Imagine together. I'm sure it is a piece of music that many of you will know. It was written in 1975, and it's this rather utopian vision of global harmony and unity and this shared sense of humanity. Always thinking about a world without borders, a world without division, a world at peace. Now, in 2007, which was almost 30 years after Lennon's death, Yoko Ono created her Peace Tower. Her Peace Tower is in Iceland, near Reykjavik. It is a pretty extraordinary piece of art, this. 15 powerful searchlights, inclusive of prisms and mirrors that will reflect the light further. And down at the bottom is the Peace Well. And in this well is written in 27 languages, Imagine Peace, picking up on the lyrics from the song that the two of them wrote. And inside the well, we have wishes from Yoko Ono's Wish Tree, which was an earlier project of hers. Trees were installed all over the world, and passers-by were invited to make wishes for the future on them, hanging their wishes on the trees. And what happened was that within a couple of days, these trees would receive hundreds of wishes, and they become these these leaves of hope. They become flowers in the breeze, kind of the wings of the dove fluttering through the trees. And people so often were calling for hope and peace, as you can see in that central mark there, and tolerance. And over 1 million of them have been sent to the Peace Tower in Iceland and buried underneath this great, extraordinary shaft of light. It is a reminder of our constant human desire to create a better, happier, more peaceful world. And when it is lit, and it's only lit a few times a year, we are all drawn together to think about this. It's lit from the 9th of October every year, which was Lennon's birthday, through until the 8th of December, which was the anniversary date of his murder. And then again from the winter solstice, so the 21st of December, it will light up again through until New Year's Day. And of course, depending on what was happening with the Northern Lights at the time, sometimes you can see extraordinary things like this, a totally magical effect. And when I was building this talk, I was asking myself, where does this light go? Is it reaching up to the heavens? Because it does reach several kilometers up into the air. But I think that this beam is in fact the dove. The dove brought bang up to date, a little bit like Carlo Crivelli's bolt of radiance that we see shooting down from the skies, these pulsating beams of light that enter into the Virgin Mary. This light is unambiguously divine. This light is a conduit for the Holy Spirit. This visual claim that peace can and will descend from beyond the human world down to our world. But the power this has is that idea is reversed. We have this great soaring light that comes from us, from our world, from our wishes and our dreams. This is the light of humanity, which is spreading out to all people in our world, powered by our collective hopes. Our capacity to imagine and commit to working on unity and hope and peace is illustrated so beautifully through art. Art, as I've said time and time again, will always be such an important player in addressing the critical issues of the time it was created in. And these pieces that I have shown you today, I really believe transcend their status as a simple work of art. And they become something so much more important, so imbued with meaning, whether secular or sacred, whatever part of the world they are from. I really believe this image, which is so fundamental to Christmas and all of those feelings that we hope to feel at Christmas, it plays an absolutely crucial and very, very beautiful role. So I do hope you have a very happy Christmas. I hope to see you in the new year, and I hope that you will be able to join me for my next series of talks, which will be starting on the 14th of January. But for now, many thanks for listening. Many thanks for all your support in 2025, and have a wonderful holiday.